Hello, hello again. Welcome to another episode of Brenda's Musings. So tonight I want to talk about the stories we tell ourselves. you know, I am a self-professed scenario queen, and I can make up a scenario for almost anything somebody throws at me. And for many, many years of my life, I would get stuck in these scenarios, and I would make up things that 99% I'm sure were not true, but I would get stuck into these scenarios. So, for example, if I had a disagreement with somebody, I would make up this whole story about why this disagreement took place. I would make up this whole story about, how this person just didn't get me or didn't understand me or, didn't like me or didn't, whatever. And I'd spin these stories, and then I would sit there in this fantasy world. And I don't mean that in the best way, believe me. And become all worried and start, trying to figure out, how I can rectify the situation and, so on and so forth. In the meantime, many times I found out the other person didn't think anything more of the whole situation. Is that we happened to disagree on something, and they were, carrying on their lives and living their best lives while I was stewing. So, that's not healthy. Definitely not healthy, and it's something that I think we do too often. I think women do it more than men, but I do think that men also do it. Just based on conversations I've had with various men over the years. But I know a lot of women tend to live into that. And I think as you get older, it becomes less prevalent. I think as you get older, you start to, learn and realize that nobody really gives a dang. It doesn't, most of the stuff that you throw scenarios around doesn't matter in 10 minutes. But sometimes we build scenarios around really funny things. So, I mean, it's not funny. It's kind of stupid funny. But so I always had this thing, excuse me, when seatbelts came in. That's how old I am. I remember when seatbelts were, you didn't have to wear seatbelts. And I remember thinking about, if you leaned against the car door and your seatbelt held, the door opened, the seatbelt held you in, how your head would bounce along the pavement as the car was going forward. And I carried this scenario in my mind for years. Excuse me, for years. And one day I was driving with some friends. We were going to Ottawa, and I don't know if I said something or the other person said something, but it turns out that, somebody else who was in the car with me had also had the same scenario going through their mind for years as well. And we laughed about it, and it still just cracks me up because it's like the stupidest thing. Why would you even think that? And yet, not every time, but often, it would occur to me. So, there are fun, lighthearted things like that, weird though they may be. And then there are the really worrisome things where you actually, your stomach is churning and you can't eat or you can't sleep or you're stewing over something. And it's, it's playing havoc with your mind, with your body. And, it can play havoc with your relationships. So, if you can, just let it go, right? If you have a disagreement with somebody, have a disagreement with them. End of story. It doesn't reflect on who you are as a person or who they are as a person. It just means they have a different point of view. And, they're entitled to that, just as you're entitled to yours. And you can agree to disagree. I mean, that's become my mantra for many, many years now. It's okay, that's fine. But yeah, scenarios, what are some of the scenarios that you make up or some of the reasons why you make up scenarios? I'd love to know. And that's my music for this evening. Have a great one, everyone.